What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be spotlighting Volcarona for the Regulation C format. This is a Pokemon that, we've covered on the channel before, in previous regulations, but now I really want to take a look at it in Regulation C because I feel like it's a little bit slept on, especially when you have bug typing and bug coverage, a typing that's very good into the Treasures of Ruin Pokemon, right? Because they're all dark types and they're all weak to bug. And, in certain teams, it might even just be better than Chi-Yu. And they're very often comparable because if you look at their stats, they're very similar, right? With Chi-Yu having, triple digits in special attack, special defense, and speed. Volcarona, same idea, same speed and also triple digits, in the special attack, special defense, and speed department. So they're both relatively weak in the physical department, but, they have some similar tools that they can offer to a team. But they also have a little bit of a different moveset depending on what you want to do with it, especially with the Volcarona. Because I feel like with Volcarona, you're able to have a little bit more utility in terms of like support options. Whereas Chi-Yu is mainly treated right now as like a special sweeper that, can occasionally set up with like Nasty Plot. Okay, which is great and all. But then you're comparing this with like Volcarona's Quiver Dance. And even though you only get a +1 special attack versus a +2 from Nasty Plot, the fact that Volcarona can outspeed you because you're also getting a speed boost and a special defense boost is huge, right? Because then you just outspeed the entire format and then you can just sweep, right? And with Chi-Yu, even though you have base 100 speed, you're not the fastest thing. And because you're so frail on the physical side, you can get one shot by a lot of different things. But Volcarona, you can play a little bit around a little bit more just because it can offer some different things that Chi-Yu cannot give you, right? But in terms of what you can do with Volcarona, of course, like we said, we do have the Quiver Dance. You also get, like, again, Fiery Dance, fire coverage against stuff like Amoonguss, the Steel types like, King Gambit, Goldango, or other Terra Steel options that, your opponent might go for, even like Terra Steel Gyarados for that matter. But then you also have stuff like Struggle Bug, right? And now this is where, Volcarona's use starts to, skyrocket a little bit more than the Chi-Yu, right? Because with Struggle Bug, now you have a super effective bug move against certain things, and you're able to lower special attack damage, right? Which is great if you think about like Flutter Mane running around. This is basically a stronger Snarl in that sense, right? Because it's a stab Snarl, okay? Even though Chi-Yu does get Snarl itself, but like Struggle Bug's really good, especially into stuff like, Tinglu or just like other dark types in general. Like you can just punish them so much. And even though like Tinglu is not a special attacker, like you also get access to Bug Buzz, right? Oops, let me just put this here. Bug Buzz again is your sweeping bug move, where you can even drop special defenses if you're lucky enough, right? But this is like a very aggressive Volcarona set with like Fire Dance, Bug Buzz, Quiver Dance, and then you just go for Protect here. Okay, and then something like either Leftovers or something like Safety Goggles just for, protecting yourself against Amoonguss, or just passive recovery, where you can alternate, Quiver Dances and Protects and then just recover over time with Leftovers. And then you can even go for something like Giga Drain here, where now you have a grass coverage move, which is, unlike Chi-Yu, you have to commit a Terra for a grass coverage move. At least I think so, right? I don't think Chi-Yu gets any like grass moves here unless it's like Terra Blast, Terra Grass. Yeah, see, like you would have to commit a Terra grass for that, but then Volcarona, you can just go for like Giga Drain anyway without having to force yourself to go Terra Grass. And now you have something against like Palafins and Iron Bundles, right? And if you go Terra Water here with something like Safety Goggles here, now the Amoonguss can't really do much. And now, you don't have to waste your Terra Grass for something like this to get around Amoonguss, because then by going Terra Grass, you make yourself weaker to like Arcanine stuff, okay? Which you don't want to take a Flare Blitz against. So now with Terra Water, you're still resisting the Palafin Jet Punches. You're still resisting the Gyarados stuff. And now with the Safety Goggles, you're also able to get around the Amoonguss shenanigans, right? And just deal big damage right back with like either Fiery Dance or even something like a spread move with Heat Wave for that matter, okay? But then, you also figure out that, Volcarona gets like another cool support toolkit, where you're just able to give your team more options in terms of what you can give it. So for example, people often forget that Volcarona gets Tailwind, right? And I've seen like Scizor with Tailwind, but like don't forget Volcarona also gets Tailwind. So this is something again that your Chi-Yu can't give you, where you just get a little bit more speed control. And then of course you still get Will O Wisp. Okay, so you can also play the Arcanine role where you can have a support move here with Will O Wisp, just neuter physical attackers, of course, and then if you can combo this next to like stuff like Amoonguss and then Gyarados with like Thunder Wave. Okay, so if I just put this here, guess what happens when you have the Flutter Mane on your team? And this is like, again, another kind of idea that you can use in your team building. But if you have like Will O Wisp, Spore, and then Thunder Wave, now if you just put this next to your Flutter Mane, now instead of like Shadow Ball, you can just go for like Hex. And then Hex just so much damage, because if you have like any of those status ailments, which you're going to be clicking a lot in your games, then just Hex does so much more damage than Shadow Ball, right? Because the power doubles when you do have that status ailment. So there's some ideas for you in terms of that matter. And then don't forget, like even if you don't have an Amoonguss, you can use this as an Amoonguss in you know, redirection support with Rage Powder. Okay, so this is again something else that your Chi-Yu can't give you. So if you're trying to set up like a Corviknight Tailwind, or like maybe something else with like Dragon Dance, like for, you know, for that matter, then your Volcarona can give you Rage Powder support, and then you can safely try and set up that Tailwind, for example, right? And then not only that, with the ability Flame Body, you know, your opponent has to think twice about committing their physical attacker against you, because if it's something like Dragonite or Chien-Pao, and then they make contact with Volcarona, it's going to do a lot of damage, first of all. I understand that, but if they do make contact, then they have the chance of a 30% chance to get burned, which could be game-changing, you know, depending on the circumstances, right? So you have to be aware of that. So I really like that about Volcarona. You could even do like additional chip damage with like Rocky Helmet, where you can break Chien-Pao Focus Sash and even break Dragonite Multiscale. This is also why like Terra Water is really good, because, you know, instead of like taking big damage from like Ice Spinner stuff, for example, then you can just neutralize that with Terra Water, which is also really good. And now you're not weak to the flying type attack from the Dragonite, right? You take neutral damage there. And potentially burn it and deal some chip damage against it, right? Depending on what your Volcarona is doing on your particular team, okay? So you can even use it as, again, like a special sweeper, where you can just outspeed the format after a setup from Quiver Dance, you know, use your Amoonguss to redirect with, you know, Rage Powder stuff, or you can use Volcarona as, like, again, a supportive set with, like, you know, Tailwinds or Will O Wisps or Rage Powders, or even like Struggle Bugs for that matter, you know, depending on what your team needs and how you want to build your squad, right? But again, I'm just trying to show you that Volcarona has some good viability, and it can give you some tools that Chi-Yu cannot do, even when you're paired with Flutter Mane, right? So that's the idea here. So now what I'm going to show you is I'm going to take a look at some tournament teams in recent you know, days that have used the Volcarona to good prowess, and then we'll do a little bit of team building for Volcarona on our side and see how we want to use Volcarona. All right, so let's take a look at some tournament analysis. Okay, so this is a team from the Vaporeon Cup, where this person, Enrico, looks like an Italian player who really used a pretty cool Volcarona set here. And again, this is pretty much how I would do it. I would maybe just make one small change here, where maybe instead of the Tinglu, you maybe go with like an aggressive dragon type, but like Tinglu definitely fits the team here. And I really like how this was made. And this is where like Volcarona can really do a lot more damage than a potential Chi-Yu. And we'll talk about that in a second. But this is it. You have a Gyarados here, you have a Flutter Mane, Amoonguss, and Volcarona. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier in the video, where you have like these four, because they go well together, especially like Gyarados for Volcarona. You're just able to provide Intimidate support, because remember, your Volcarona doesn't have as much physical bulk. So if you can neuter physical attackers, that'll be very good, because then that gives you a little bit of space to try and set up a Quiver Dance and potentially sweep after that. All right. Then again, look what you have here. The Clear Smog, again, is just to, you know, respect potential Dondozo stuff. And it can also remove, you know, Intimidate drops onto your Iron Hands, Gyarados, or Tinglu for that matter, depending on how you want to do it. But you can see, again, here's the Hex idea from the Flutter Mane, right? You have the Thunder Wave on the Gyarados. You have the Spore from the Amoonguss. You don't have Will O Wisp on the Volcarona, but that's okay. 2 status ailments is all you really need to justify yourself trying to go for something like Hex on Flutter Mane. But, you know, same idea here. Again, the Volcarona is being used as a special sweeper. You can even set it up with the Iron Hands. You know, fake out, then set up Quiver Dance is actually really nice. Or you can even set up your own Iron Hands with Swords Dance. I like this a lot, especially when you have Amoonguss on the team. And, you know, this is how you get around Intimidate, right? If you swap in an Arcanine or swap in a Gyarados, if you're adventurous enough to swap in a Gyarados, you might drop Iron Hands to -1, but then you just click Sword Dance, and then all of a sudden you're back to +1, and then you have a lot of pressure, because even though you might take damage because you're slow, you can just regenerate it all back with +1 harder hitting Drain Punches, which in turn means, of course, more recovery over time. But Leftovers Volcarona here with Fiery Dance, Bug Buzz, Protect, Quiver Dance. So this is a sweeping Volcarona with Leftovers Recovery. You're just able to alternate protects and just get passive recovery over time. Really, really nice in terms of trying to utilize Volcarona on this set. And again, the Tinglu, you might say Tinglu looks a little awkward in terms of reducing special attack damage from your own Fluttermane or your own Volcarona, but you know, just remember that Tinglu itself and Iron Hands also don't want to be taking too much special attack damage. So you still have that going for you in terms of a support option. And just Tinglu is really good in the format, especially when you have like heavy slam and Ruination chip damage, where you can just potentially finish games off with Iron Hands or either Fluttermane and Volcarona in the end game, right? And Amoonguss Tinglu is actually a very, very annoying lead to try and deal with because they're so bulky, and then just a bunch of chip damage over time with the spore pressure is just annoying to deal with. So this is a really, really cool team. I like it a lot. So shout outs to Enrique there for coming up with something like this with Volcarona. Okay, then when we go into this other tournament that took place recently, again, the Pollen Puff Portland Regional Preparation Tournament. And by the way, Portland's happening right now as we speak. So we hope to see some good teams there, and we'll do a whole analysis breakdown when the whole regional is over. But here's another team that utilized Volcarona. So from AOX VGC here, you know, top 8 cut here with this Volcarona team. So if we take a look at this kind of squad, again, similar concepts where you have the Gyarados, Tinglu, and the Mungus over here, just like the other team. So for the same mons, but now you have Annihilate here that's able to set up with Bulk Up, similar to how the Iron Hands wanted to set up as well. So again, 2 types of setups here with Quiver Dance and something else trying to set up. Okay, and then you have the Corviknight with the another Bulk Up Corviknight here. So the 3 setup Pokemon with Roost, Iron Hand, Brave Bird, no Tailwind support here. That's okay, and no Fluttermane for that matter. So very, very adventurous in terms of building here. But again, something else that makes a lot of sense in terms of trying to support the team in general with like Gyarados and Tinglu, because then with redirection from Amoonguss, you can set up these bulk ups, these Quiver Dances from, you know, your other 3 options. And depending on how you want to play it, the speed control is not going to matter because you're just able to regenerate over time with Drain Punches and Roosts, and then of course Giga Drain over here. So that's how you can get around by not having so much speed control. You take the damage, right, and then you just recover it over time with your recovery moves and your setup moves. Okay, so really, really good ideas here from AOX VGC. I like it a lot. But then if we backtrack all the way back to EUIC, there were some interesting teams here that also utilized Volcarona, but I want to take a look at this one in particular just because you have the combination of Wo-Chien and Glamour. Of course, a combination that we have seen before, has, you know, struggled a little bit to like get like some really, really, really good regional results, has done a little bit of top cutting, of course, but in terms of like trying to support, again, similar ideas. You have the Iron Hands here, you have the Gyarados. Basically every team had a Gyarados and an Iron Hands or like some redirection support from Amoonguss. And here's the Fluttermane idea again with Hex. So with, you know, of course makes a lot of sense with Glamour. You're just able to poison everything, you know, with Mortal Spin, corrosion stuff. Then you go for like Will O Wisp here. So again, either you're going to get poisoned or you're going to get burned. Hex, Fluttermane makes a lot of sense here. And then the Gyarados, instead of being supportive with like Thunder Wave, this is being more aggressive with Dragon Dance. And again, another set of Pokemon on a team like this. So again, you see like these balanced teams, they always want to, you know, go for potential setup plays because that's how you can get around the more aggressive teams, right? Because you're a little bit lacking in the speed, but then all of a sudden, you know, you just have these setup moves and then you're just able to win in the end because you're doing more damage and, you know, you're regenerating over time with, you know, a lot of your recovery moves. So Leech Seed, the combination here with Leech Seed, you're able to just create a lot of space here. Of course, with Will O Wisp pressure as well. Just, you know, you're just able to punish a lot of different Pokemon, a lot of different plays, and really, really helps the Iron Hands, you know, go for the end game stuff. You know, as long as you have Gyarados and Wo-Chien, along with Glamour, you're just able to chip a lot of damage over time. Rage Powder, again, this is one of your support Volcaronas where you're just able to potentially set up Leech Seed, set up substitutes. Makes a lot of sense here. Set up Dragon Dance for that matter, right? Volcarona, Gyarados Seed, Rage Powder, set up Dragon Dance, and start sweeping, right? And I really like that a lot. I can even see something like another Dragon type, you know, taking this place. Not the Gyarados place itself, but like another way where you can just use Rage Powder, Volcarona if you don't have an Amoonguss, and then just use like something like maybe Roaring Moon or Dragonite for that matter. But another cool way to utilize Volcarona. So it really just depends on how you want to use it. Okay, so here's a little bit more supportive with like redirection, struggle bug, special attack reduction. There's no Tinglu here, and then being able to burn things with Will O Wisp. Support Volcarona in this set, whereas the other two teams, they were trying to make it a little bit more aggressive by making it sweeper with Quiver Dance, Heat Wave stuff, okay, or Quiver Dance, Fire Dance, Bug Buzz stuff, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to make our own Volcarona team where you can utilize this as well, and let's see what kind of concepts we want to try and do. But the whole goal is to, again, give you some ideas from these tournament teams and give you an idea from us, so this way you and yourself can build yourself a good Volcarona team, or just use the ones that we made. All right, so let's go back into Team Builder. Okay, so we're back into Showdown here, and I'm pretty much not going to change the formula as to what we discussed so far. So I'm going to start with these four, with Volcarona, Amoonguss, and Gyarados. So you have your Fire, Water, Grass core going for you. And again, with Gyarados Intimidate support along with Thunder Wave, you're just able to help yourself create some space and allow the Volcarona to set up these Quiver Dances where it can just go for either Heat Waves, or if you don't like Giga Drain, you can definitely do like Bug Buzz, where you're just able to go for a really, really strong bug move in general, and do a lot of damage against the Ruined Pokemon. So if you like that, you can definitely consider it. I believe in the test battle I'm going to show you, I was still like Giga Drain in that set. But if you want a little bit more resistance for like the Palafin stuff, you can definitely also consider Giga Drain here. But we are going to go with the Iron Hands as far as our fifth option here. Okay, I really like Iron Hands because you could even do like fake out Iron Hands and then just set up your Volcarona in the back end. Okay, where you can just fake out and just click Quiver Dance, and then bring the Iron Hands back out for later, and then just bring in something else and just let Volcarona and the partner do a bunch of damage and get your fake out back and let Iron Hands do a little bit more later on, right? So you're able to do this, and then from here I feel like you just want like another big physical hitter, because we got the special damage. Amoonguss and Gyarados is more supportive here. You have one big physical hitter with the Iron Hands. I feel like we need another one that's a little bit faster, and you have a couple of options. You could do like back Scalper here, in terms of your dragon type here, and of course because we are going to go with Terra Steel on our Gyarados, we still get our balanced team where we get a Fire, Water, Grass, Dragon, Fairy, Steel core. So you could definitely do something like this with back Scalper, and if you want this kind of team, just message me and I'll give you a variant with back Scalper instead. But the one that I was doing in the video, or the one that I was giving the viewer when they requested Volcarona, is I was doing Roaring Moon here. So with Roaring Moon, like with some of our ideas that we saw in the video, we just need another set of Pokemon here besides the Volcarona, and I think Dragon Dance can give us that idea as well. So with Dragon Dance and Protect on our Roaring Moon, along with Amoonguss setup, we're just able to set up this Roaring Moon, go for like hard-hitting acrobatics, hard-hitting throat chops. You can basically just sweep the entire format, and you are going to be going with the booster energy set on this Roaring Moon here. Of course, we are going to be Terra typing flying here. So this is the 6. Okay, I like it a lot. You have Intimidate, you have Fake Out here, you have Redirection support. You do have a little bit of speed control because you have Thunder Wave over here, and you can outspeed your opponents with setup plays with Quiver Dance and Dragon Dance for that matter. So you have that going for you. Okay, and again, you have your Fire, Water, Grass, Dragon, Fairy, Steel core on your team. So it's a very balanced team in terms of how it plays. But again, Volcarona doing some good work here in terms of tools that it can give you that the Chi-Yu maybe it can't quite give you. All right, so let's go ahead and round out the rest of the moves, and then of course we'll go into the EV sets. Okay, so back here, so Volcarona, again, I'm keeping it as Terra Water here, just so that even though Terra Grass might be okay with something like Leftovers, I don't want to be susceptible to like Arcanine stuff for that matter, or even like an opposing Chi-Yu. So I'm going to stay with Terra Water for now, which is still a pretty good typing in terms of defensive typing for that matter. The Amoonguss, same idea. We're going to go Terra Water and then just have, Regenerator over here. Okay, and then from there, I just want to be able to go for Rocky Helmet. Again, that chip damage against Focus Sash and Multi-Scale Dragonite is important. So Rage Powder, Spore, Pollen Puff, and then Clear Smog, just to respect the Dondozo stuff, and maybe just also help your Iron Hands and Roaring Moon, just erase their Intimidate drops if they ever do have to suffer from them. All right, Gyarados here, it's going to be Waterfall, Thunder Wave, and Taunt. Taunt is really good against like an opposing Amoonguss, and then Protect in this last slot over here. Citrus Berry is really nice on a Gyarados like this. and then you just get a little bit more passive recovery over time. Fluttermane here, Life Orb Fluttermane I do like here because we are running the booster energy on the Roaring Moon. So now what we're able to do with our Fluttermane is actually be able to pivot it in and out because we're not completely reliant on the booster energy now. So Moonblast and what could be Shadow Ball here is now Hex, just because we have Thunder Wave and we have Spore with our Gyarados. So this is also interesting to try out. I think at the time when I was doing the video, I was doing Power Gem in testing on Showdown, but Hex is another good idea. Power Gem I like a lot here. Power Gem is really good against like other Terra Flying stuff that's running around, especially there's so many of them that want to be able to dodge like the Tinglu stuff. But then in addition to, you know, you have an Iron Hands, but also with Power Gem, you're just able to snipe the Chiyus. You're able to snipe the Arcanines for that matter. So it's a really, really nice and handy tool to have. I like it a lot with Fluttermane, this kind of format. Iron Hands here, so Assault Vest for sure, without a doubt. I do like Terra Grass here just because an opposing Amoonguss is annoying. Wild Charge, Drain Punch, and Heavy Slam. This is our steal option of choice. This is what's going to let us snipe potential Fluttermanes here, you know, because just having Slam is a really, really good coverage overall in terms of what we wanted to do. All right, and lastly, we already did the Roaring Moon because it was Terra Flying, but this is pretty much it in terms of the movesets. This is our close sheet, okay, because we have the Terra options and the items in terms of what we want to do. So now let's go back to Volcarona and let's do a quick EV team building here. Okay, so with Volcarona, in terms of an EV spread here, what I like is with Quiver Dance, you're able to outspeed the entire format. So what speed can give you that? Something like this, where you're at 156 investment, which will get you to 140. This is what's going to let you outspeed Adamant Natured Great Tusk anyway. And then after you do a Quiver Dance, for that matter, if you just do 140 times 1.5, that'll get you to 210. And if you think about Iron Bundles with booster energy stuff, or even without it, again, Iron Bundle hits the 206 mark, so you're just able to outspeed that after a Quiver Dance. It'll get you to 210. And you also do like some speed creeping as well with that matter. All right, then from there, I do like Modest Nature here. I feel like we want a little bit more special attack damage, but just a little bit, like right here, 176 investment. This is the first bump in our special attack stat. So again, if you're trying to play competitive Pokemon and if you don't know what EV bumps are or EV benchmarks, feel free to comment in the video below. You got to know what EV bumps are if you're trying to play this game. They're important in terms of like the initial planning stages of team building, as well as understanding how the stat bonuses work when you do hit those bumps. All right. From then, I just like to go max HP on the Volcarona. 192 is a pretty good benchmark number. 1 point in the special defense is all we need. And then from here, you just dump the rest into defense like this. These are just like leftover EVs. But again, the whole idea is with this 140 benchmark number, you're just outspeeding the entire format after Quiver Dance. And then you just hit the first bump in special attack. You're super bulky in terms of HP and defense. So this way you're able to stay on the field and just click Giga Drains every now and then, or just click Heat Waves, or even Fiery Dances if you like a little bit more consistent single target damage from your Volcarona. You could definitely go for that as well. All right. Then the Amoonguss here, I'm just going to keep it relatively straightforward here with the Relax Natured with 219 in terms of our HP stat, 156 investment in defense, and then the rest just goes into special defense. So here you're hitting the second benchmark, and with 219 you're optimizing your regenerator recovery, where you're getting a perfect 73 HP recovery per turn, not per turn, when you switch it out, because it's 1/3 of your max. If you do something like 217 or even like max HP like this, 221, you're gonna get a decimal, which would round down, but I want that perfect 73. So this way I can, you know, save myself some extra EVs. All right, in that matter. And what's good about this, you know, relaxed defensive investment is you can survive a Ice Spinner from a Chin Pao, right? So that's always beneficial if you can live that. All right, then Gyarados here. So with Gyarados, Careful Nature is the way just to get a little bit more out of your special defense boost, because, you know, with the defense not being so much, that's okay, but you do have Intimidate anyway. So let's make you a little bit more bulky in the special defense department. But ideally, again, max HP here, but just a little bit speed. 36 investment is all we need, because like after a potential Thunder Wave for that matter, you're just also outspeeding the Iron Bundles for that matter. All right, you actually just need like, what is it, 103, I believe. But then let's just go to 106. You can even go to like 107 just to outspeed Dragapult if you ever care about it. So there's there's something like that. So I'll leave it like that. You just outspeed Dragon Ball after a Thunder Wave on it if you ever do run into that scenario. But 1 point in the attack. I'm going to hit the bump here in special defense right here, right? 156 investment, and then the rest just goes into defense like this. All right. It's just a very bulky Gyarados that's just meant to click Thunder Waves, click Taunts, occasional chip damage with Waterfall, support your team by getting those attack drops. So this way your Volcarona and your Roaring Moon can set up. All right. Fluttermane here. So again, like we mentioned with Fluttermane, a lot of these Fluttermanes are like going for bulkier modest sets. And there's 3 kinds of speed tiers that they like to go for in terms of speed. They like to go this much investment with 171. This is what lets them outspeed Garchomp. For a while, I was doing this up to 175 to outspeed those speed creepers, and then also outspeed max speed Adamant Dondozo, because a max speed Adamant hits 174. So I figured, let's go to 175. Or you can just go with this for Mousehold and outspeed them for that matter. But if any of those 3 don't enlighten you, then you can just also do max speed with right here 116 investment, the benchmark number, the EV bump number, where even though it is the same, you're always going to get a special attack boost in terms of photosynthesis if the sun is out, because you are modest nature, even though the 2 numbers are the same. All right. But then from here, the main idea is to outspeed those bulky Fluttermanes, but also be able to survive the non-Terra Palafin Jet Punch, and this investment will do that for you. So that's the whole idea with this set. I got this from Neil, so shout outs to Neil, of course, for that set. And I liked it a lot. When we did our 5 rental teams, our Fluttermane set was this EV spread, of course, so we just borrowed it. The Iron Hands. So the main thing you want to do with the damage calc with Iron Hands is just to be able to survive a Choice Specs Fluttermane Moonblast. And you're able to do that anyway with an Assault Vest. Just a little bit of investment, but what I really want to do is just make this super aggressive in terms of a little bit more damage. You still go max special defense, all right, and then a little bit of speed just to outspeed those speed creepers. 1 point in the defense, and then you can just go with the EV benchmark here with 209. You see how you skipped 208 here? You went up by 2 points, okay? And then the last point in the HP, again, super hard-hitting Iron Hands with a little bit of speed, and the rest just went into special defense. Now what you can do is drop him a little bit like this and put him with a little bit more HP like this, and just maybe go a little bit into the defense, right? You can drop him a little bit. Oops, no, sorry, I meant to do this. Okay, where you're just getting a little bit more HP value, but a little bit less attack, but a little bit more bulk for that matter. So if this is something that suits you, you're still able to survive the Fluttermane Moonblast for that matter. But again, up to you if this is something that you're considering. All right, but I'll just put this back here into the attack. Then the Roaring Moon here. So I do like Adamant max speed here. Again, this is also good enough to outspeed Garchomp. So I do like Adamant max speed. Then from here, I like 164 investment. Well, and this is just for like, of course the benchmark, but for Dragon Dance boosting, which is really nice. Then from here, just 1 point in special defense. You don't really need all that much. And then, just the rest can just go into defense like this, just to get a little bit more bang for your buck there in terms of our defense points. But it's just leftover. It's just meant to outspeed Chomp, second benchmark in the attack stat, and the rest is just like leftover EVs. Okay, but this is pretty much it. This is the team that we've come up with in terms of how we want to utilize Volcarona for Regulation C. Again, it's just meant to, set up with Quiver Dances, give you the occasional Giga Drain, grass coverage against, Palafins for that matter. Also great into Tinglu, right? Because Tinglu is a ground type, so you're able to do good damage there. Even though you're doing a little bit more reduced damage, but that's okay. Still fine. He can't really beat you unless he clicks like Fissure. So, do that with what you may, okay? And then you still have the raw power of Fluttermane with Moonblast, Life Orb stuff with Hex. Hex is really good because now you have Amoonguss and you have Thunder Wave going for you, so that's also really good. And of course, you have the Roaring Moon pressure with Dragon Dance. Even if you can't get off the Quiver Dance with your Volcarona, you can also do like set up with your Roaring Moon Dragon Dance for that matter. Okay, so this is a team. We're gonna put this in the video description. Let's try out one or two couple practice games and see how we can utilize Volcarona on the rank ladder. Let's take a look. Okay, perfect. So this is against Palafin Balance here. So basically, I can see that there's an Iron Hands and a Tinglu on his side on the same team. So one of them is Assault Vested, the other one is not. But I can definitely see Volcarona having some use here, especially because there's a Palafin on his side. Gyarados is also going to be really good here just because we can intimidate, 3 of his Pokemon. And then we just have to have this end game where like it's a Flutter Mane versus Flutter Mane mirror. I would imagine he has to bring it just because we have a Roaring Moon and an Iron Hands. But we're going to leave the Roaring Moon behind here just because a lot of what he has is pretty good against it. So I don't really need to bring it here. I feel like Flutter Mane, along with the support options that we have with Volcarona, is just going to be pretty good against whatever he has here. Okay, so he goes into Flutter Mane and Arcanine, which is a very standard lead. I'm going to go with Gyarados and Flutter Mane myself. So we have a little bit of an upper hand here just because, we have a water type in front of a fire type. But the plan changes a little bit just because I see that he is a speed boosting Flutter Mane with the booster energy. So my whole idea now is I want to Thunder Wave this Flutter Mane, so this way my Flutter Mane will outspeed it in the end game, okay? And you might say it might be a little bit risky to leave the Gyarados in here just because Flutter Manes have Thunderbolt these days, but because he has an Iron Hands on his team, I don't think he's running Thunderbolt. That's generally like a rule. If you already have an Iron Hands, you don't need Thunderbolt. You have the electric coverage already. So I'm just going to try and stay in and just get off this Thunder Wave here. So he goes for Terra Normal, which is interesting. I'm going to Protect so I don't take damage on my Flutter Mane this turn. Goes for Wisp. I don't really care if he misses or hits because my main thing was just to get off this Thunder Wave here. Okay, so and this is where we just go for the Power Gem on the Arcanine. So you see the value there, right, of Power Gem, just being able to remove that Pokemon just immediately without too much hesitation here. And he does protect his Flutter Mane, but that's okay. I just wanted to get the Arcanine off the field. And now here comes Tinglu. Okay, so Moonblast is going to do a bunch of chip damage. That looks like Assault Vest to me if I've ever seen it. We get a lucky Parahax there. A little bit more Waterfall chip damage, which is great. Puts it in range of another Moonblast next turn, which is really good. And I know he can't protect, so we're just going to remove it right away. So Flutter Mane picking up 2 KOs. And even though he removes my Flutter Mane this turn as well, that's totally fine because now Gyarados just gets a little bit more chip damage on his Flutter Mane as well. Okay, so Iron Hands on our side, Iron Hands on his side. So what I want to do, just because this is his last Pokemon on the field, I'm going to preserve the Gyarados one more turn and just being able to recycle my Intimidate onto his Iron Hands, because what I'm going to try and do is just remove this Flutter Mane and force a 2-on-1, even though I have a Volcarona in the back. But I don't expect it to be a huge player, and you'll see why. So here comes the Volcarona. All right, he goes for Protect, probably just not wanting to get faked out, which is totally fine. Goes for Wild Charge, does a lot. We live because we have good defensive bulk. And now what ends up happening is he does a little bit more chip damage to himself, and he is Life Orb, by the way, which is great because if it's an Iron Hands versus Iron Hands mirror, we're going to win that. But we do remove the Flutter Mane with Drain Punch, so we're able to get a little bit more recovery as we go. There's more Wild Charge damage, that's okay, because now we preserve the Intimidate. Here comes Gyarados. So now we can basically essentially win the mirror, because the only way to remove Gyarados is to go for that super effective Wild Charge, which is going to do more damage to himself, and then we're just going to be able to use our Iron Hands and just beat him in the end game, right? So pretty clean end game. So a little bit more chip damage with Waterfall, more damage with Drain Punch here, and he goes for the Gyarados kill, which is fine by me because the recoil is just gonna make him faint to himself, and then that just gives us the win. Okay, so even though Volcarona wasn't like a huge player, the fact that we were able to at least use it as a Pokemon to switch in and then just get the Gyarados for the end game is kind of how you want to play this team with like positional play. So I feel like we did a good job there. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, so this one's like another balanced team with like Chi-Yu, Flutter Mane with Amoonguss, Gyarados, and Chien-Pao, and then there's a Gallade there for some reason. I don't know why. But either way, I feel like I can just lead like Volcarona Amoonguss here. Just put on a bunch of pressure right away, especially if he has like an Amoonguss and a Chien-Pao as a lead. And then his Chi-Yu is just only going to make my Volcarona just do more damage, right? So he leads this. I don't know, maybe there's Trick Room shenanigans here. I just don't really know what he's trying to do with this Gallade. I would imagine it's pretty good for like Dondozo stuff, I guess, just because Sacred Sword ignores those defense boosts. But pretty much here, I just want to Spore the Gallade and just go for like Heat Wave here. And I don't really think there's anything he can do to really stop it, unless maybe he wants to switch in to like a Gyarados. But he goes for Rage Powder, and this thing got Aqua Cutter, which almost kills my Volcarona. Thank God I have like good investment there in the HP. I didn't even know Aqua Cutter was like a move, but there it is. Aqua Cutter from Gallade almost kills my Volcarona. What if I just click Redirection, man? All right, but then we are able to get the sleep off on the Gallade, which is really nice. The Amoonguss has a little bit of recovery. Obviously, he's preserving it for the Gyarados. I thought he would do this turn 1, actually. But either way, we can just simply go for more Heat Wave. We missed the Gyarados, but we hit the Gallade again. Pollen Puff to heal the Volcarona, so there's some good synergy there with the Amoonguss. And again, he's gonna taunt, which is fine by me, because then I just get off a free Quiver Dance here. So now Volcarona is just poised to do a bunch of damage. I want to remove the Gallade, but he goes into the Chi-Yu. He could have easily went back into his Amoonguss. I wanted to go for Giga Drain, but here's my Intimidate onto his own Gyarados. And now my Gyarados is in a much better position against his Chi-Yu. So that's also very, very good news here. And Terra Water really, really helping us here. And we get the burn, which is very important, right? Because this is the one thing, as we said, that Volcarona can do. It can give your team that Chi-Yu cannot give your team, right? Along with a bunch of other useful tools. But we burned the Gyarados, so we can pretty much almost ignore it for quite some time. I just want to be able to remove this Chi-Yu here. So Giga Drain, get a little bit more recovery. We proc the Gyarados' berry, but that's okay. Snarl Chi-Yu, which is interesting. All right, I didn't quite expect that, but it does get that as a move. And Thunder Wave, putting our Volcarona there a little bit, but we do get to remove the Chi-Yu. So that's one big offensive threat that is removed for our opponent. Here comes the Amoonguss, and I'm gonna repay him a favor here by taunting his Amoonguss here. So that's also gonna be really nice. And then I'm just going to be simply going for big Heat Waves here. Now you might say, like, why would I do that if I could just kill the Amoonguss? I'm pretty sure it wasn't going to kill. So that's why I clicked Heat Wave anyway. And I just wanted to taunt the Amoonguss just in case, even if it didn't, and it didn't. So there's some good ideas there. But a little bit more Black Sludge. Gyarados is withering down. It's not really putting out much damage. So I'm just going to go into my Amoonguss here. It goes for Earthquake, which is very interestingly enough, but here more Heat Wave pressure on the Amoonguss, and I could have clicked Giga Drain again, but again it's totally fine, because now against the Gallade, which is asleep, it does wake up this turn. Psycho Cut removes the Volcarona. I don't get the burn here. Goes for Taunt. That's okay, because I can just Pollen Puff the Gallade, which actually doesn't even kill, unfortunately. But now we just get to go into our own Gyarados, and we should be able to just clean up from here. He doesn't really have a whole lot here. Again, Psycho Cut there does a lot of damage. Waterfall on our Gyarados, again, still fine. We removed the Gallade. The Gyarados is chipping away at Burn, so there's that. And you can't really do a whole lot here because now that's just pretty much it. And we're able to do a pretty good job here. So Volcarona did a lot of work here, and Amoonguss and Gyarados were also able to support, in the closing, turns. Okay, so that's gonna be it here. So let's go back here into the Pokepaste, where we showed that team that we made with Volcarona here. So again, if this is something you're interested in, if you're trying to build a team for Regulation C, whether it be like an online tournament, for a regional, or maybe some ranked ladder play, if you're trying to make an ideal work here, definitely check out coaching on the channel. Teambuilding sub, it's a tier 3 sub to the channel. If you take a look at the video description, or if you take a look at the pinned comment, we have a link where you can join the channel as a tier 3 sub and sign up for coaching for the channel. And once you do sign up, you're able to message me on Discord, and then from there we get to plan a team building session together via a Discord call, and get you that team that you need for a regional, a tournament, or some simply just ranked ladder play. All right, we'll be back in another video next time. Be sure to keep checking out Portland Regionals. It's happening right now as we speak, and we'll see what the results there look like. But maybe we might even see some Volcarona in that kind of regional. So we'll see if that is in fact the call. But we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good night.